Hi, Year 9. Another video for you today, and this time I thought I'd pop up and say hello. Seems like a very long time since we were in school, and a very long time since I was able to teach you properly, so I thought it'd be nice to say a quick hello. I hope you're all doing really well. I'm really proud of how well you've all worked. I know it's been really stressful, and I can't imagine having to do all that schoolwork at home, so I really do empathise with you. But you're doing really, really well, and the end is in sight, and you've got this one big thing left to do, so I want you to keep up the good work. Now I'm going to attempt to turn off my webcam and just get on to the matter of the day, which is the lesson. Okay, so today you are writing the introduction of your speech, and you're also going to start on a couple of the main paragraphs. Now, I noticed from some of your submissions on Show My Homework that some people are a little bit ahead, and that's okay. You might kind of want to work at your own pace, but I'm going to suggest a pace for you because it can be quite overwhelming to just think, I've got this big thing to write, how much do I do each day? So I'm going to suggest what you do each day, but if you are super keen and you want to do more, then that's okay, you mustn't worry about it. So my suggestion is that in today's lesson, you write your introduction and you start your first paragraph. So to think about the introduction of your speech, you want to create a positive impact, basically grab people's attention, get people interested in your topic. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. So the next slide shows you some examples of ways that you might want to start your speech. And this is called hooking the audience or a hook. So you could start with a question that makes people think. How many of you here today, let's say it was about video gaming. How many of you here today have ever played a video game? Immediately your audience are engaged and they're thinking and they're responding because they're either going to be able to think, oh, that's me, or no, it's not me. So you could start with a question. You could start with a quotation. So if you're doing something where you've got some really interesting quotes from people, that might be a good way to start. You could go in with a statistic. If you're going to do a statistic, make sure it's quite a shocking or interesting statistic. So, for example, last year alone, smoking led to 96,000 deaths. That's quite shocking, isn't it? Because it's a lot of deaths. So if you're going for a statistic, make sure you've got a good one. You could go with a current event that's related to your topic. So you know that people are maybe know a little bit about it already. So something like you may have read or seen in recent news. You could go with a statement. I have to say, I don't think a statement is always the best way. I wouldn't be too keen to rush into that, I think that some of these other ones are a bit more interesting because your speech is going to have lots of statements in it. So my advice would be not to start with a statement, actually, but it's up to you. You could go with a personal story. So a personal story is an anecdote, really, but it's just one that's about you. So you could have an anecdote about you. So a few weeks ago, I was walking downtown and then people are interested because people are interested in stories generally. Or you could go with an anecdote, so a little story that doesn't have to be about you, it could be about somebody else. And this is a good way to get people's emotions going, particularly if it's something like this, 5-year-old Hussein is a lonely orphan, ... You could paint a picture, so start describing, imagine this, a young girl on her own. Or your final one, I'm just going to have to pull this up so I can see, a visual aid. So you could, in this speech, you can have a PowerPoint as long as it doesn't have any words on it. So you might have a PowerPoint with an image and you might want to start by getting people to look at the image. The one thing I'd say about that is, in the past, Year 9s have often said it can be quite distracting, get a bit anxious and think, oh, my PowerPoint's not going to work. So I'm not sure if I'd put a PowerPoint in, to be honest. Most people don't. So those are your options. Now what you need to do is you need to pause the video and you need to write 2 possible openings for your speech. So for example, write one that starts with a current event and then write one that starts with a quotation. And you're literally just for the hook, you're talking about a sentence or 2. So you're only going to be writing a sentence or 2 of a question and then an alternative sentence or 2 of a quotation. Then it says here, ask somebody at home which they think is most effective. You could do that if there's someone about, or if it's just you, just look back at them and decide which one you think is best. So pause the video and spend about 10 minutes doing that just now. Okay, next up you've written the first part of your introduction, you've written the hook. So the first sentence or 2 of your speech. You've got 2 examples of that and hopefully you've decided which one you like best. Now, to continue the introduction, we now do what's called the preview. And this gives an overview of the main points that you're going to talk about in your speech. You don't develop your points here, you just kind of say what they're going to be. So it summarises each point in as few words as possible. So this example that you've got here in italics is about smoking. So that was an example hook. Last year alone, smoking led to 96,000 deaths in the UK. And now here's an example preview of the same topic. This is a shocking statistic for a country that claims to be dealing with the problem of such an addictive habit. But whilst advertising might have been removed, smoking still causes horrific illnesses, costing the NHS millions of pounds and impacting on the lives of innocent people who can't escape the noxious fumes. So in that's two sentences, two quite long sentences. In that are the main points of the argument. Pause the video and just read that and decide what are the main points. I'm going to tell you what I think they are in a minute, but just have a pause and have a think. What are the main points of this person's speech going to be? Okay, hopefully you've had a little think. So if somebody wrote this preview, I as an audience member would be thinking, okay, they might talk about the fact that advertising has been removed. They might talk about why that's a good thing. They might talk about what the horrific illnesses are that can be caused by smoking. They might talk about, or they're going to talk about, how this impacts on the NHS. And they're also going to talk about other people, not necessarily just the NHS, but the lives of innocent people who suffer from the passive effects of smoking. So in that preview, couple of sentences, it just kind of almost lists the different things that you're going to be talking about in your speech. So let me give you an example. Let's say your topic was going to be that school uniform should be removed. You might be saying something like, school uniform not only limits people's freedoms, it is very expensive and can cause a lot of upset to students. And there's three things that you're going to talk about. You're going to talk about the expense, you're going to talk about it limiting people's freedom, and you're going to talk about how it upsets people. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to write your preview now, a couple of sentences that picks out the main topics you're going to talk about. Okay, so you should have your hook and you should have your preview now. So you should have the first 3 or 4 sentences of your introduction. The final bit of your introduction is called the statement and ethos. And you'll remember the ethos is when you show that you are passionate about the topic and you show that you know about it. So this is a clearly worded statement telling your audience what your overall message is. So continuing on our example, as a young person who has seen firsthand the devastating effects of smoking on families, I believe that smoking should be eliminated from our society altogether. Government should act now to save lives and save the NHS from the unnecessary pressure that smoking causes. So that really summarises what the main point is going to be. And also, it says, as a young person who has seen firsthand the devastating effects of smoking on families, that's the ethos. That's where this person is showing, this is my knowledge, this is why I'm interested in this topic, and this is why you should trust me. So you need to pause the video now and you need to think about your final couple of sentences of your introduction that's really going to sum up what your main point is and also why you're interested in it. So pause the video. That should take you about 10 minutes now. Okay, so you now have the first draft of your introduction. Congratulations. For the remainder of the lesson, you're going to be starting to write the main paragraphs of your speech. So this is a little summary of what the main part of your speech will be like. So you're going to have 3 or 4 main points. Remember, in your preview, you identified what those main points are, so they need to be the same. 3 or 4 main points that you want to make, creating 3 or 4 paragraphs. I think the vast majority of people will do 3. And if you have got particularly a lot to say, then you will go into 4. Now, we do the basics here. Each paragraph should have a topic sentence, and a topic sentence just needs to make it clear what that paragraph is about. So, for example, going back to this, you might have a topic sentence that says 3 of the horrific illnesses that could be caused by smoking. So you write a topic sentence that makes it clear what your paragraph is going to be about. In each paragraph, you want to use at least 2 rhetorical or persuasive devices. Remember, these are the things like direct address, rhetorical questions, triplets, statistics, etc. And then, as a challenge, I think that the challenge is only necessary if you think, I really want to get a merit or a distinction here. If you're just happy to pass, then I don't think you need to acknowledge the counter argument, but I would be thinking about it if you want to try to get that merit or that distinction. So this could be done in one main paragraph, i.e. you could have your fourth paragraph could be the counter argument, or you could briefly acknowledge the counter argument to each point in every paragraph. It is your choice. But like I say, if you're just going for a pass, you don't need to worry about this. If you're not, though, start to think, well, what would somebody else argue? And am I going to include that in each paragraph, or am I going to include it in its own paragraph? So you're going to have 3 or 4 main paragraphs. They're each going to start with a topic sentence. They're each going to have 2 rhetorical or persuasive devices. And you're going to explain in those paragraphs your point of view about the topic. So here's an example using the smoking topic again. So a topic sentence about each point. Here's an example topic sentence. Smoking doesn't just affect those who choose to do it. It affects all of us because of the huge cost to the NHS of dealing with smoking-related diseases. So we know, you can see here it says, we know the paragraph's going to be about the NHS. Nice and clear. Now, the main bit of the paragraph. Now, support your opening sentence with more details. Use at least 2 rhetorical or persuasive devices. So, as I read this, I want you to think, what are the rhetorical devices? According to the Action on Smoking and Health England group, the NHS spends approximately £2 billion per year dealing with problems associated with smoking. So we've got a statistic, that's our first device. This staggering amount of money, which includes hospital admissions, GP consultations and prescriptions, as well as any operations or treatment needed for smoking-related diseases, could be available for non-preventable diseases if only people would stop being so selfish. Now that is quite an emotive word, isn't it, to call people selfish, so they've used emotive language here as well. Imagine how it must feel having to wait for essential treatment just because so many smokers were taking up essential resources. Smokers can prevent their illnesses. Many innocent people can't. So they've used an imperative as well. They've used commanding verb at the start of that sentence, imagine, to make the reader think about their point. So there's a little example of what one paragraph's going to look like. It's got a topic sentence. It's got a bit more detail after the topic sentence that includes persuasive devices. Okay? Now, for the remainder of the lesson, you're going to write at least 1 main paragraph, and I think lots of people will manage to write 2 main paragraphs. I'm going to put the planning sheet, I'm going to attach that to show my homework, so you can use that just to help you. That gives you a little bit of guidance on what to do in each paragraph. I hope this video was helpful, and good luck writing you've done your introduction. Good luck writing your main paragraphs.